Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Network One-on-One, where I sit down two people who haven't met each other, but I believe that they should. This is our experiment in networking, and we're going to see today how it works out. Today, I sit down Taryell Simmons and Garlejo. What they have in common? Workforce development. Such an important factor in businesses worldwide. Let's see how this goes. Network One-on-One. Sit back and enjoy.
We're going to have to get back into that, though.
We could loop it back into our conversation.
We will have to loop that back into our conversations at some point.
All right, so
they want us to do introductions, name, business name, years of experience in your field.
Let's start with you.
You want to start with me? Okay. And I'm Taryell Simmons, and I have several different businesses. So I'm gonna go through the gambit of the businesses. So I know one thing that we have in common is workforce development. And, I currently do equity, diversity, inclusion work. And I accidentally fell into that from doing my workforce development work. Nice. I also do a podcast called Rise Urban Nation. And what happened was during my workforce development career, I became very involved with public speaking at different high schools to speak to underserved youth.
I love that.
And yeah, thank you. To get them into middle-age careers from when I was doing Connected Careers at Workforce Partnership. And what I saw was a lot of the youth, the Black and brown youth, they had a limiting beliefs on what they can do and what they can be.
Oh, yeah.
And let me not put that on the youth, though. Sometimes the adults had limiting beliefs on what the kids can do and what they can be. And they would push that on the kids. Yeah. So like for Black culture, sometimes if they grew up in rough environments, they think the only way out their environment is to be a rapper or a ball player. Oh. What I saw in the Filipino community, since we have that affinity to Filipinos, is that if you're an immigrant parent, they would tell them, "Oh, you're going to be a nurse, doctor, or
you know it." Yeah, that's exactly where my parents thought I was going.
Yeah, and like that's the only career you can go to get the American dream or live a good life.
Exactly.
And I know so many of them, so many that went down that route and are just miserable because that's not. Talk about living your purpose.
Yeah, we'll get into that Filipinos in San Diego are nurses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where that stems from.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't want to even be nurses.
That's so crazy.
They have another, deep down in their soul, they have another purpose in life that they want to fulfill, but they're too scared.
And I've seen a lot of people break out of that. And like I know my cousin's wife actually she was a nurse for maybe 10 years, and now she's going into clinical research. Nice. Kind of similar, but different, right?
Yeah. And see, it took her that long to break that cycle, right?
I actually worked in the ER for a little. My first year, I was a freshman at Cal State San Marcos, and I got offered a opportunity to go work at Tri-City here in Oceanside, and as a scribe. Have you heard of that position?
What's that?
Before iPads, we had giant tablets, and
so we just take notes.
Pretty much. So to just speed up the process in the ER. So I was with the patient, with the doctor, the physician, and, just jotting everything that the doctor was asking, to speed up the process. But when I was looking at, I didn't last very long in that job just because it was so hectic, and I couldn't do blood. I can't do blood.
Right.
And you see how long they've all been there, and you're like, we're just now seeing this patient who's been here for 5 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah. And what did Auntie say to you when you left that job? I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I didn't last that long in that job to even make friends. It's just a fast-paced environment in the ER.
Right.
But what about years of experience?
Wait, hold on. Let me go back. So that's one of
one of your businesses. That's right.
So Rise Urban Nation podcast. So basically from that, what I wanted to do is I realized that, some of the youth couldn't be what they couldn't see. So I wanted to showcase all these just amazing people that's just doing great in their business and life. and living life on their own terms within purpose so that they can see that it's possible, right? You don't have to be a nurse. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a rapper or a ball player.
How long have you been doing the podcast for?
Since the pandemic. So it's been going on 2.5, going on 3 years now.
How many episodes?
We're over 80-something episodes now. So
is it like addicting?
Yes, for me it is because I'm living in purpose. So
that's amazing, though. Now after this, I might want to do more podcasts.
There you go. I encourage you to come on to.
Do you interview Filipinos? Filipino females?
Unfortunately, I don't. But that doesn't mean you can't. Or we happen to know somebody who same biz, different. Who could get you on their show.
Because I might want to do more after this. I don't know yet. I'm still feeling this out.
And I can introduce you to some people who would gladly have you on your show. That's in alignment.
That'd be amazing.
Yes.
I'll think about it.
I also did a business called Culture Casino before the pandemic started. And basically what it was is we go on these walking tours in artsy neighborhoods that had like a lot of street art or or local just mom and pop shops.
Yeah.
So that you can see the makeup of those small communities and the art and the people that really inform it. And then we would go to a local, restaurant and then break bread with all the individuals that came to learn about each other, cultures. And
is it just local? Do you focus in San Diego or do you go up?
So we started in Barrio Logan, then we went to
when you said that you toured like artsy places, my first thought was Barrio Logan.
Yeah, so we did Barrio Logan as a tour. We did Normal Heights as a tour.
Nice.
And then the pandemic happened, so we paused the business for a while, but we're hoping a lot of people want to know when we're going to get back into it, so we'll see. So
San
that might be
full of all that culture, so that's really cool. I hope you get back into that.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is like we have all this culture, but people when they come in, they tend to go to the same places like Gas Lamp and Old
I've lived
Town
here all my life. I grew up here in San Diego. I still have a lot of places to see.
Yeah.
Like I still haven't even done some of the touristy things, but like you're right. Everyone just goes straight to the beach or just goes to Gas Lamp, like you said. And
but
that's not really, it's San Diego, but
But there's some other parts of San Diego that are just amazing. Amazing food, amazing people, amazing art.
Like even
culture.
I don't know if you've been to Escondido. There's just so much culture there too. That's where I grew up.
Oh, you grew up in Escondido?
I did.
Get out of here. How was it like growing up in Escondido?
There's a bigger Latino community there. Not so much Filipino, and I don't know. It was more. I don't remember much of it because it was when I was in elementary school. I moved to Temecula halfway through middle school.
Nah.
So I had a lot of elementary school friends. I went to a newer school, and the demographics there were mixed.
Yeah.
Just because it was a brand new school. But later on, I went back to the school to mentor with my first grade teacher, who was still there after like 25 years.
Wow.
And that says something, right? If your teacher, one of your first teachers in your life is still doing what they love or they're still there and they care about their community, because the demographics changed, then it ended up being more Hispanic and English as a second language school. And a lot of the teachers left because of that, because they couldn't deal with that. And he stayed. And so I thought that was cool. But yeah, most of my friends were just mixed. And then when I moved to Temecula, there was a lot more Filipinos up there. Yeah. But
I feel like there was more Filipinos up there. And then like in National City, that's where I see the rest of the bulk of the Filipinos.
Yeah. I wonder, I think it's because it's San Diego's like a naval port. So the Navy. Yeah. My dad was in the Navy.
Now, are you born and raised?
Here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So when I first moved, because I'm originally from D.C., when I first moved out here, I would always say, where are all the San Diegans at? Because I felt like every time I met somebody...
They call us unicorns.
Yes, we are unicorns, because I'd never meet a whole bunch of... And it would be...
But I don't feel that way. I'm just like, okay, sure.
Because you are the unicorn.
I'm like, okay.
And you know where all the people that you kind of grew up with.
No, but yeah, I'm excited that, I live in a very touristy town. So, if people visit, I can show people around and it's like my backyard, right?
That's beautiful.
What was some of your other jobs?
Village Up. I'm a board member over there, and it's pretty much from doing equity, diversity, inclusion work, I got pulled into the tech startup space. And so what we did as a board member on this organization, we started a company that really helps bring multiple resources to Black and brown founders, or not just Black and brown, underserved founders. So like, say if you're just starting your company, like what resources do you need? Like whether it be funding, nice. VC funding, whether it be office space, whether it be whatever it is, we try to create an ecosystem map that gets all of the resources, because there's all these different programs and different initiatives out, but they're not all in one place.
Know.
Yeah, you don't know.
And how do you find them? You just or Village Up.
So we tapped into all the different, like the startup weekends, to the VC venture funds that are out here, to Jacob Center, to all these different resources. We got together and start having different meetings, and then we create a cohort to bring all those resources and start pulling all the data together so that it could be in all in one space, and then have events to connect people to each other so that they can get the resources.
I wish there were resources like that for Filipino minorities.
There are.
There are?
Yeah. So, and we've pulled those resources together. So I have to invite you.
Is that with for Village Up? Is it only focused on the BIPOC communities, or?
It's focused on underrepresented communities in the startup ecosystem. So that would be LGBTQ, that would be Filipinos, that would be Hispanic and Blacks, because these are underrepresented communities in the startup space. So like if you look at especially in the tech startup space, when we go to these conferences, what you see is like these big VC venture capitalist funds, they always tend to give money towards, the cis white male CEO companies. And we're like, hey, this needs to change. How can we do better? Right. Especially ever since, the untimely death of George Floyd, you start seeing more companies saying that they wanted to do better. More VCs said they want to do better. Okay. You want to do better? All right, let's have a meeting and let's co-create what that better could look like. So
you invite VCs to...
Yeah. VCs are in the space too. We have a couple of VCs that sit on our board that are really focused towards, different funding streams for those underserved communities. So what we did also to start this off, I should have told you, is that we did a data report. So we did a survey to all these underrepresented VCs, founders, people in the space, to see what the ecosystem looked like and what they felt their needs were. And we saw that this was the biggest thing for women founders was mental health, was the biggest shocking thing that we saw, that they felt that they needed support on, because sometimes if they go into male heavy industries, they're forced to deal with these issues as a woman of trying to start a company. And then there's also the other issues that women have starting a company with not getting the funding they need, juggling families, imposter syndrome, all these other things that we started. And so we started to have really honest dialogue about that. And why that was happening is because they're trying to fit in a male dominant structure that wasn't geared towards them. And so how do we flip the box and create, what is it that you want to create in the entrepreneurial endeavor that you create that fits you and all of you, instead of trying to fit into this capitalistic male centric box.
Yeah, no, and I can see that being a huge need, and that's really cool that you're part of that.
Yeah, and so we started to have really, really robust conversations around mental health, which became the more focused than the money aspect, because it looks like mental health was what everybody during the pandemic realized is what they wanted. They wanted better mental health. They wanted better work-life balance. They wanted all these amazing things.
Did Village Up start after the pandemic also?
It started in the midst of the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
So it started off as a survey. It wasn't a company yet. And then the events turned it into what it is. And so a lot of my claim to fame with the rest of the company started during the pandemic. All the workforce development stuff was pre-pandemic, and I did that for like 8 years plus in EDI and.
So you brought a lot of expertise into that, though.
Yeah, the crazy thing about it is, like, when I first met with Google and TechStars, I I didn't know I was doing a lot of the same work they was doing because I was working in a nonprofit at the time and working with government. And then when I got in, I was like, oh, we do that, but it's not called that. Oh, we do this. That. He's like, I told you, you do more startup work than you think you do. You don't know the terminology and how it works. And so that's how it works. So,
hello, friends. I'm Joe Samo. I'm an attorney in San Diego, and I'm the host of Run It By My Lawyer. It's a great podcast where you will learn a lot about the law, and it is very entertaining, if I say so myself. And you could get it for free anywhere you get your podcasts, and you could follow us on Instagram at Run It By My Lawyer.
This podcast is brought to you by YourInsurancePlace.com. Owning a business is hard work. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into it every single day. You need a partner who understands the ins and outs of insuring small to medium-sized businesses. For over 40 years, our California Property and Casualty Insurance Agency has insured businesses just like yours. We've seen it all, and we've learned a thing or two about what it takes to keep your business protected. That's why we offer free policy assessments. We'll take a look at your policy and let you know if there are any gaps in your coverage. Let us help you to protect what you've worked so hard to build. YourInsurancePlace.com.
Enough about me. Let's talk about, we're going to get into that, but let's talk about you and all your companies. I feel like I've been monopolizing the conversation.
No, but you're very interesting. And I just think it's really important to talk about what expertise you bring to the table, because I feel like you're here to help me because I'm new to the workforce development space. And I want to be part of the, conversation. And so I'm glad you're introducing those those resources out there so that I can share those with people in my community. And it said name, right?
So give them your name, the many different organizations, because you have a beautiful plethora of organizations and things that you do that make up you, and then how long you've kind of been doing these things for.
So I'm May Garlejo, and I work for the Vista Chamber as a workforce development coordinator. And before that, in the midst of the pandemic, I started my small business called Handmade. But before that, I started my entrepreneurial career doing events. We called it, my friend and I, one-of-a-kind rentals. Yeah. So that's how I kind of started the whole entrepreneurial journey and just wanting to be creative. My dad and I created lawn games that we rented out to weddings. And I partnered with my friend who she was going to weddings like every weekend, her and her husband. And I was like, we need to capitalize on this. Or we just kind of we partnered up and we're like, what should we do? We should do something fun. And so my dad and I got to work. We made like a giant Connect Four. We made a couple of cornhole games. And I wanted to make the Jenga, but we just ended up buying the Jenga. But I, bought the stool that it sits on, and we rented those out as a package. And then I started to do signs for the events too, like handwritten signs. So I learned calligraphy, and but that was so you
do calligraphy too. On top
I used to. I wish I could do more now. I just honestly, if I didn't have to worry about my finances, then I would just be doing creative stuff every hour, all day, every day. So I just do it as a side hustle. And so fast forward though to my, those are my side things, is my creative side. I did event rentals, and I still do signs for people. I'll make things. And then now with Handmade, I'm hosting markets, and I'm actually hosting my first market. Congrats. We probably won't talk about that because it's going to air in January, but I'll just say
it's like the prelude, the teaser. So we know the new Wakanda movie is coming out. I don't know why I say Wakanda. What's the Black Panther movie's coming out? You get the teaser before the big thing.
So we'll just say that I am hosting markets now. I've evolved from doing markets to hosting markets, and so I'm bringing small local vendors, all from all backgrounds, wanting to create and share their art, whether it's whether they bake goods or they have products that are all natural or something that they made with their hands. I'm I'm trying to bring people together to sell at these markets because they're fun to do when I did them over the pandemic. But in terms of workforce development with the Vista Chamber, so what did it say? It said like...
So I'm going to tell you a secret. You didn't just start doing workforce development. You've been doing workforce development. Everything you just mentioned that you did, that's workforce development.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, because actually from the one-of-a-kind rentals, I wanted to eventually start a website where it was like a one-stop shop for people DIYing their wedding. Like if they don't necessarily want to pay someone a ton of money to organize it all for them, they could come to the website and there would be photographers that they could call there. There would be venues that they could look at that we partner with, or rent our games, or find photo booth people. And that never happened. But yeah, I guess kind of like workforce development. Like,
and this is why it's so important for us to have diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workforce development, because the way that workforce development before people like me and you came into it was very Eurocentric and very static to like a very government and capitalistic business type of structure where they don't look at like how, thinking outside the box, how different communities have different needs and how the artistic community or arts community can have a totally different need for workforce development. And how do you do that in that instead of working in the same box? How do you work outside the box?
Like you don't necessarily have to be working closely with the government to, develop a community within your community, especially bringing out those artists and like, and
it creates
a place for them to shine.
For to shine and for other people to come in to invest and then find.
And they're family-friendly events. And, they're coming in, bringing their kids, and their kids are inspired and, seeing their Filipino mom, setting up their booth and selling and talking to customers. And it's fun when I do these events, because I used to partner with my friend who's also Filipino, and she would bring her daughter sometimes, and her daughter would have her own bracelets in a corner of the table, and she would sell her little bracelets for her own price, and it's kind of cute. So,
and then you probably see the big smile on their face once they get to do it
make
as well
a sale.
too. And then they start to you know what, I can actually make this a business. It builds their confidence. Yes, it builds confidence, right? He keeps flashing questions at us. I don't even know what the last question was.
It was what does workforce development mean to you, I think.
So I think we kind of tackle some of that. Let's see what is it, Taryell. When coaching and mentoring businesses or individuals, what are some of the programs you refer them to and why? We
kind of talked about that. You talked about how, right? With Village Up?
Yeah. So, there's so many different programs. It depends on the individual needs of the individual. So, one program that was pretty popular, actually kind of still is right now for those small to mid businesses, is a program called Tech Hire. And basically what it does, it takes untapped talent. And some of them are artists, mind you, but in the digital space. And so say if you're a small business and you're not great with social media or creating marketing materials, you can connect with Tech Hire, and then they have a certain amount of hours for a person to come work for you at no cost to you, the business, for about 6 months. And that individual gains work experience because maybe they might be new or they don't have enough work experience. So they just need to get something on their resume. And and then the business benefits because they get a great worker. They get the, and
you're kind of mentoring and coaching them on what you need. And they're moldable because they're new to the space.
Yeah. And the goal of the program is okay, this person comes work for you, and then hopefully after getting 6 months of experience or 120 hours, they, if you have it in your budget, you can hire that person on, and then they've had a success. So it's you get to try them out for free, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the whole goal of the program. So that's one that's been wildly popular. Another one was by the San Diego Regional Center, and what they're doing is they work with individuals with disabilities or neurodiverse individuals to get them work experience. Same concept. they put money for this individual to work for you for 6 months.
Nice.
And then hopefully at the end of that experience, they get work experience so that they can go apply for a job, whether it be in your organization or someplace else. And so these are two of many different vehicles that are out there that people can take advantage of. Let's see. Where have you found businesses or workers having the most success in the workforce development space? But I'll let you lead off with this one.
So like this past summer, I, coming into the position at the Vista Chamber, I was in charge of the Velocity internship program. And it was paid through some funds that we got from the city to offer the high school students that were graduating the following year. So this past year was the first time they did that, or we did that rather. And we matched up about 44 students to 20 businesses, and 12 of them got hired.
Wow.
And so I think where I forgot the question already. Wait, what was the question?
But just tell me the success story. You think what?
So the businesses and the workers, the businesses benefited from that, right? Because they got that free help. It was at no cost to the business. Right. And these students got that work experience for the whole summer. Right. I mean, I wish we could offer it for the rest of the year, the school year, but then the schools also do their own unpaid internship.
Gotcha.
But
I still think that's valuable because, sometimes when you're a young person, you don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes even your parents don't know because they've only probably been in one or two career fields.
Yeah.
And so by them getting that experience, they either two things will happen. Either one, they'll like it, or they'll like some aspect of it, or like a company is like, this is,
even if it's just a summer.
Even if it's summer, this is something I want to, dive into further when I go to college or when I go to tech school, trade school, whatever it may be. Or there's you know what? Realize that's not my skill set. So I thought I wanted to do that, and I don't want to do that.
Kind of like how I worked in the ER, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Because sometimes you need that experience to know, right?
No, really. Yeah. So going back to our conversation when we talked about how I was not forced, I just wanted to make my parents happy, and they wanted me to be a nurse. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to a 4-year college, and I'm going to take all the classes. I'm going to take microbiome. I didn't get to anatomy and physiology. Would have been interesting, but worked in the ER and found out it wasn't for me because I, cringe at the sight of blood. So,
and lucky you had
I realized that early on.
I feel that some people stay with it because the guilt and shame of letting their parents down is too much for them to bear, or they don't know how to pivot from it, and so they just stay in it.
Yeah. No, that's the truth. It could be a mix of both, and me being A-type and very much just I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. My college tuition was paid for through my dad's fee waiver since he was a veteran.
Yeah.
And I should have taken advantage of that. And I had the opportunity to go down that route. But I was like, this doesn't make me happy.
Right.
I don't enjoy working with people in this environment. So I pivoted.
Now, would you say, because it seemed like your parents may have been a little bit more supportive of that decision, or
they didn't shame me at all for it. They just they still love the fact that I wanted to continue going to school, and it wasn't that I wanted to drop out of school. It was just I didn't want to do nursing.
Okay.
And so I switched to communications. I took a lot of classes there, and I had a lot of influence from friends saying well, that's too broad. You don't want to do that. You like math, don't you? So I ended up going down a mathematician route. I took a bunch of math classes because I do like math.
Okay.
And then I was
communications and math. What did you end up with again?
Interdisciplinary studies. It was a dual concentration in organizational leadership and personal health.
Get out of here. So my master's is in organizational leadership, global organizational leadership. So it's funny that we're both in workforce development.
Yeah.
We have the organizational leadership route.
Yeah. So during my whole college career, I was working part-time as a preschool teacher because starting in my junior year, I explored child development. So I started working at a preschool. So while I was doing that, I was also a nanny for a mutual friend, and she was like my mentor because she was a college career like
counselor.
Yeah, like a counselor, and she was like, May, you're good at this. You should, and you have this opportunity to go to ASU right now I worked at Teavana. It was like another small job I had over the summer, and I was selling tea. I actually worked there for 3 years. But when Starbucks bought Teavana, they offered all of us free tuition to go to ASU.
Wow.
So that's where I ended up going because I left Cal State San Marcos to go to just Palomar College, community college, to finish child development because I was in school for like 10 years. I couldn't decide. That's the learner in me. I loved learning, and I was like, I love that, but I like that, but I don't love that. I'm going to go this way.
Right.
And so child development didn't pay a lot, or, being a preschooler didn't pay a lot. So I pivoted and went to my friend who was my mentor. And I was like, well, I have this opportunity to go to ASU. I don't know where. I really want to get my degree. What do you think I should do? You know me. You've known me for 3 years now. I was their nanny. And she looked at the different courses. It was all online, 100% online, ASU. Yeah. So she looked at the courses and she's like, well, you're really good at, teaching, and you also are really good at, you want your own business, right? She knows that like I eventually wanted to teach my own classes off to the side, because that's how she met me. She met me at Gymboree. Yeah. I was like a art teacher there. And for her 2-year-old. And so she's like, you're also really good at dancing. Like you could teach your hula classes at this like space. And so how about some business classes? So let's look there. And then she found the organizational leadership route and was like, you should take those. Yeah. And you can do the dual concentration since you like health and you're passionate about health, and pair that with personal health, because I wanted to be like a health coach. Ooh.
Yeah. And from our previous conversation before we hit record, there's some correlation there to the simplicity of Japanese life, structure and health and wellness, and the themes of the threading between the yoga
and I didn't even think about that. But there's there's definitely elements of the Ikigai way there with like finding purpose through work and balancing it with a healthy lifestyle. And so that's kind of like why I wanted to be a health coach too, was like I felt drawn to that. And I didn't even know about the Ikigai way before that, like I just knew that I was drawn to balancing work and life. And, eventually either whether that's, being a health coach or a wellness coach, or, just taking my own personal, like using that for my own personal benefit, right? Like how do I take care of myself while I succeed in my career? Right. So
we got some parallels in there too that I'm gonna go back to, but remind me what the Ikigai way is again. Give me the whole concept.
I'm still reading about it. It's really just this like way of life where you live with purpose, and you kind of like know you're constantly reminding yourself, what is my purpose in life? And even if you don't know it, I still feel like it's something to explore and have on the back of your head. And the reason why I'm so drawn to it is because it people have kids because they want a purpose in life, right? Yeah. And or they'll stay in their career because they're like, I want to build like a legacy, I like for my kids, and I want to like build an empire or whatever. But like sometimes that's not what you need. You don't need kids or a super solid career track path. Like it might just be that what makes you happy, like at home doing what, like if it's just like, giving advice to your friends when they need you and that makes you happy, then taking that and being like, that's my purpose. Like, that's why I'm here. I'm here too, to be there for my friends. I'm here too, to like introduce you to people that I know. I'm here too, to help you walk your dog.
And I think sometimes people miss.
The Film Hub is the future of co-working in downtown Vista. Get energized in an inspiring work environment that is built for your success. With multiple membership options for workspace and private offices, you can become a part of our co-working community. The Film Hub makes it easier to produce the professional content your business needs. From video production, live streams, photo shoots, or in-person events, you can create all this and more in our audio and video facilities. Love your work and where you accomplish it. The Film Hub.
Hi, I'm Jeff Fox, founder of Star Fox Media. We're a digital marketing and video production company that focuses on serving small businesses here in Vista, California. We have the team and all of the equipment necessary to produce, film, edit, and distribute your podcast to as many people as possible. For more information, you can reach out to us via email at info@starfox.media or give us a call at 760-385-3117. Let Star Fox Media help you tell your brand story today.
Because we're so sold on, this culture of, all right, going towards the American dream, the white picket fence in the house. We've been sold on that as being the purpose.
Yeah.
And that's not really the purpose.
Yeah.
But when you truly connect with your purpose, like life, you start to live life in what I call flow, where you're in alignment. And then the universe just provides everything that you need in life because you're in this rhythmic flow of purpose and it just works. I don't know how to explain it, but it reminds me of that.
Well, then, I think you already are like embracing the Ikigai way in your own way, right? And it doesn't have like a label like that. You just already kind of know that that's what is kind of like not necessarily missing in your life, but that's like something that kind of, gives you a reason to wake up, right?
Yeah. When did you start chasing purpose? I remember the exact date when I started chasing purpose. When did you start chasing purpose?
I don't remember the exact date. That's really interesting. I haven't thought about that. But I want to say when I realized my finances were just like, like I never really understood why building credit was so important until a certain time. So maybe it was then when I was like, my credit's really bad, even though I'm not about to buy a house right now. Like I still need to shape up because it's just what is necessary. And so that's when I kind of like said, okay, I need to, and it's a superficial, thing, but yeah, that's kind of like,
I don't consider it superficial at all. I think everybody has whatever it is was the awakening.
It just needed to happen. And then I want to say when I pivoted to thinking differently in terms of like, I need to find a good balance between the two, work and just life and living, was when I took my yoga teacher training courses and realized that yoga is not just about poses and, breathing. It's also about like a way of life. And so now I kind of look at life with the yogi lens where it's like things like Santosha, it is what it is. So just not letting things get to you and things like that.
So here's funny. I'm gonna rewind this back a little bit because there's some parallels there. So remember you said you went to ASU and you've been on this 10-year journey. I was on a 10-year journey too. I went to an online school. I was going to Ashford University. I was working at Ashford University.
Nice.
And then they paid for my master's.
Oh.
And so that's why I went into organizational development.
Cool.
I started searching purpose after I got laid off from that job because I realized the culture when I looked at what the top path flight looked for those executives. I didn't want to be that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have meaningful relationships, lives, and it was just they had money, but what else did they have?
Yeah.
And that's not how I want to live.
Yeah.
So I started going back down this path of finding purpose. And then the funny thing is once I started just being and finding purpose, the more opportunities came to me. And then so when I go speak to kids, I always tell them like, do what you love what you do. Don't chase the money, let the money chase you. And what I mean by that is when you live in purpose and you do what you love with a passion and you do it to serve, things happen for you. I remember the first time somebody wanted to pay me a big check to come speak.
Mm-hmm.
And they was like, hey, how much would it cost you to speak? And I didn't know people get paid big numbers to go speak. And I was like, I don't know. I gave them a number. And they was like, oh, that's it. I was like, wait, you would have paid more to come see me speak? I'm like, just out of curiosity, how much were you thinking?
Yeah.
And they gave me the number. I was like, what? I was like, wow, like, look at the universe.
Yeah. So that's like them seeing that value in you, though. Like they found you and they're like, we were willing to pay that. Yeah.
But also the value in really finding your purpose in doing what you're called to do and meant to do on this earth and serving from that standpoint of view.
Be defined by a number either. You know, like you coming up with that lower number was you just being like, I love doing this and I'm happy to do this. You know, it's not about that. But if you want to pay me more, then
I'll gladly take more. May, please describe the
BRIGHTMINDS
and social workforce programs. Okay, tell me about this program.
So BRIGHTMINDS, well, let's see. So SOCAL Workforce. Let's start with BRIGHTMINDS. BRIGHTMINDS is an entrepreneurship program for middle school girls. We recently got funding, or before I got hired, there was funding there to start this program, but it had to be geared towards girls, younger middle school girls.
Okay.
So we're focused on one school, and we successfully had, well, let's just since it's recorded in January. They successfully sold their handmade goods at the Christmas parade in December.
Okay.
And so what we're teaching them are things like how to start your business, we don't teach them necessarily how to write the business plan, but we tell them what's needed to start your business. So we covered topics like marketing and customer service, which we're actually teaching. I'm teaching that tonight.
You are?
Yeah. So that lesson, we're on week 4. So,
man.
So we're teaching.
I got so many amazing women, VCs and entrepreneurs that would love to be a part of this.
I'm looking for sponsors.
You look for sponsors too?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yay. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how to sell the sponsorships. I'm new to that. So my email in the beginning was just
on that
like,
too. I can help you out with that.
It was, like asking for that. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know how to write that email because I know it has to be like, I know people are like, what's in it for you?
You got to put a sponsorship package, and then you got to know your numbers too.
See, the sponsorship package was too wordy for me, and I got feedback that it was too wordy. It's not even mine. It's something that we kind of bought from another chamber. So I want to revamp it, and maybe I can connect with you on how to revamp that because it's such a great program. These kids are so creative.
Yeah, and then you have to know your numbers of what it costs to get each kid through a program.
We give them loans. We give them $200 each to buy whatever they need to. So I have a girl that wants to make candles. She's never made candles before, so she sold candles. I have a girl that has they're making bracelets. Another girl that's making paper flowers. They're all very different. Cupcakes. The program the lessons rather are to teach them how to sell hot chocolate. That was the original curriculum, but all of them were like, nah, I'm not going to sell hot chocolate. I'm going to do this. They're so creative. Yeah.
I love it. And so how many weeks is this?
5 weeks.
5 weeks?
So I teach every Tuesday night. And, the first lesson was fundamentals. Second lesson was cost models, talking about like, what do you need for your hot chocolate stand? You need all these ingredients. And then I told them to be mindful of things they might need for their booth. We're not in marketing yet, but starting to think ahead, like what things you might need for your booth. Like, how am I going to store the hot chocolate? Or if they're going to sell candles, how am I going to display those candles so they're not just sitting on a table, they're kind of high up on risers so people can see them.
Yeah, I think you can even expand this model. Instead of just doing hot chocolate, do like a lean canvas model and then have that 5-week program and then bring these professionals in. But first, like I said, you got to find out what the cost is in a dream world what would it cost to get one girl through a whole 5-week program, giving them all the resources they need, and then even the time of instructors coming out and all that stuff. Price that out so that you can really get the the amount of sponsorships that's going to help fully sustain this program. And that's something that we'll talk about once
Yeah.
leave it offline.
No, that I would love that, because I would love to even just, open it up to the BIPOC community and have them shine and show their creativity, if there's funding there and people that want to support that, right? Just like the funding that we got for the women, to sponsor the girls to go. It's like, well, what about the underdeveloped communities? What about the boys? What about, we are focused on middle school girls or middle school kids with this program. If 6th grade or 5th graders are up for it, maybe expand it there too. But yeah, I see a lot of potential in this program, because starting early is better than doing nothing at all. And we're already doing the internship program and another thing that Vista Chamber is doing is the SOCAL Workforce. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not.
It stands for Student Opportunities for Career and Learning, for Careers and Learning.
Okay.
So it's SOCALworkforce.org is a website where students and transitioning adults can look at a library of videos that were recorded from local businesses being interviewed on what their position is. So it's like a talent recruiter. These kids can go on the website and look up talent recruiter and learn about what her name is. I forget her name, but they can watch her video, and she is interviewed these questions like, what soft skills do you need for this position? Or like, what do you love about your job? And what do you do on a day to day? There's interview questions. And on Thursday, I'll be at my first one recording for the city. But it's a program that we plan to expand across SoCal. That's why we called it SoCal. And we're not really focused on any specific community per se, except for the students and the transitioning adults. But I'd love to get your input on how we can include and kind of also say that this is for you, like from a inclusive and diversity standpoint, like how do we incorporate and use this as a tool?
So, I think it's beautiful. I was just thinking, like, my whole podcast is set up on some of that premise and format, but I go into the life story of this individual, and then we go into the career they're in now, and they talk about like what I do, what's the skills you need, what was my transition into it, and how can you transition to it. So I love that.
Nice.
Like,
so tell us about your work in the area of
yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely want to hear about the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So I always tell people I was doing diversity, equity, inclusion work before I even knew it was that. Hence why, I get called into these different spaces to do D&I work. It started through workforce development. But if you think about workforce development, there's so many elements of D&I embedded into it. Because like when I first started, I had to go into communities for, underserved youth, the Filipino community, the veterans, to people with disabilities. And then going into those communities, I had to learn about those communities, what their needs were, so that we can really make sure that we create a program that fits their needs.
Yeah.
What was typically done for is like before I came aboard in workforce development, they would have their research and data, and then they would then build a program based on that. But what I would tell leadership, no, we have to like actually go into the community to see what the cultural makeup of the community is. How do they receive information? What is it that they really need? Because the data only takes you one piece of it, right? It says we're failing this community and that they're not getting the information here. But maybe that's not the place they get their information. Maybe they don't get it at the library. Maybe they're not on the computer or online because they don't have access to Wi-Fi. So how do they receive their information? And how would they like to engage in this information? And what do they feel their needs are? So you co-created a solution for the community. So that's where my D&I practice came to the forefront based on, looking at those needs. And then, when George Floyd happened, I was really brought into a leadership role in D&I because I held these spaces to talk about race. And the effect that race has or injustices have, or the differences in communities that may leave us in this tension, kind of, so to speak, right? Because when everybody comes to work, they only, depending on how safe it is at their work, they only show, like, you only see the top layer of what that individual is. But there's so many layers beneath the surface that we don't talk about, like concept of time, our cultural makeup, religion, things of that nature, that we don't talk about, which sometimes I call people icebergs. Like, if you look at icebergs floating on the water, the clash happens down below because that's where the bigger consumption of what is made of the person. And then are we consciously seeing what we see above, what I see here, and I make these biases and assumptions based on how I see you appear before me and how you talk to me. But there's so much more than you than that, right?
Yeah.
And if I got the chance to know you, chances are I might have some things in common, right? And I can make some connections, even if I don't fully agree with everything that you are about. I can still connect to a level of humanity to you that I can understand why you do something the way you do, and then have more of a respect for that, instead of othering you, like, oh, you're the other, right? And then othering to the point where you're less human, like,
making those assumptions, without knowing. But so how do you kind of open up with these, or get these people to open up if you're working with individuals who
I think when you start with a small group, you have to make connections. And so you start small, where people, have simple things that they share in team building, that they learned a connection piece. Like, say, oh, so, tell me about a fun place you travel to, or what are you going to do this weekend, right? Like, but go into detail about it. And then they realize that some people have things in common. Oh, wait, I didn't know Stan, your wife was Filipino. Oh, wait, you love soccer? And then that's when the connections are made. So now that commonality helps me, like, ease some of my, barrier down. And then you go into the more difficult things of, like, understanding culture. Because, like, culture is, sometimes people in the D&I communities, they first start off with being competent of everyone's culture, but that's kind of hard to do because there's so many cultures out there. And then as we go into different spaces, cultures start to merge and mix, right? So, like, you, because you're traveled, you could have some U.S. cultures, some Filipino cultures, and some Japanese cultures that meshed into the culture of you, right? And then when you go into the office, right? Office culture then comes to play in that, depending on what office you're in. Like, you could be in this office, on this side of the office is one culture. On that side of the office is a different culture, right? And so your culture is always evolving. So there's no way people can be competent about every single culture. But what you can do is have cultural humility, where you get to say, hey, I don't know everything. I want to learn about you. And please forgive me if I get, this wrong. And I want to understand, what are some things you like? Some things you're into? Like, what's important to you?
It's so hard because not everyone thinks that way. Not everyone, like, comes into an environment with that kind of mindset. Like, I'm going to be humbling of the experiences, or humbling of the interactions that I'm making. Like, I'm not going to judge them by what I see, right? And they might not be motivated to ask those hard questions. And so it puts people in a workspace too in an awkward position.
And I don't even think you have to you don't even have to go that deep all the time. But so here's one thing that I like to lift people with. Like, are you familiar with the golden rule?
Maybe.
So the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I tell people, if we're going to, create a new culture of equity, diversity, and inclusion, we have to get rid of that rule. And I know some people might crucify me because, like, it's a rule that's in Catholic religion that's often overstated. But I say we go by a platinum rule, and the platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated. So in order to do that, you have to really get to learn who your neighbor is, who the other person is, so that, because I may not want to be treated the way you want to be treated. And by respecting the way that the other person wants to be treated, there becomes this synergy and this connection that allows for the humanity and a shared space for each other.
It opens up the conversation.
Yeah.
It's like that golden rule saying like, treat others the way you want to be treated. That's like very one-sided. Like I only am going to treat you the way that I know that is, the way to be and way to be treated. And so, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
The platinum rule.
Yeah. And so we can move into a society where there's some co-creation. Who can I introduce you to? Well, I'm definitely going to introduce you to some people from Village Up. I'm going to introduce you to Jasmine and some other folks she does a Girls Greater Than Tech program, and she does different programs similar to the one that you do. And then there might be some partnerships there. I can't think. I know there's several at the top of my mind. I'm not going to do a whole laundry list, but we're going to definitely start with those two.
Yeah,
and then we're going to meet too, so we can get your stuff together, so we can make this program sustainable.
Yeah, no, I would love that. I probably want to introduce you to our CEO, Rachel Beld of the Vista Chamber. That way, because right now in my position at the chamber, we're both like kind of. I work in tandem with the CEO on evolving this position because we want, to be a go-to resource. The Vista Chamber needs to be a go-to resource for workforce development. So I would love to incorporate more, you said D&I, into what I do. And because I come from, the BIPOC community. Am I from the BIPOC community?
You are.
Because there's like AAPI too.
What?
I just like I don't know the acronyms, but
you are. So don't get too sold up on all the acronyms and all that stuff. Just show up authentically as yourself and just be who you are.
Because we're still sort of like defining my position, and that's what's the best part of it, right? I have the freedom to create my own programs. So that's why I would love to introduce you to my boss so you can help us develop my position a little more, because I would love to, we do have the LIST grant, and that's to help. That's a resource that we have and funding that we have to help the BIPOC community and within Vista get those resources that they need. But it's like we're a little lost with, or rather, I'm a little lost with how I in the workforce space can take from that and provide that for our businesses. I'm sure Rachel does, but who else do I want to introduce you to? I just want to be introduced to all the people because they sound cool.
No, we will. How can the network one-on-one audience contact you? All right. So for me, the way you can contact me, I'm all over social media, TARYELLS for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever's, LinkedIn, Taryell Simmons, whole name, email t.simmons@taryells.com, www.riseurbannation.com for the podcast, and then all Rise Urban Nation to all the social media channels too, if you want to catch up with content on the podcast. So that's me. What about you?
May at thevistachamber.org, or yes, that's my email. And our website's vistachamber.org. I'm also workforce at vistachamber.org. So our website is SOCALworkforce.org. And that's the program that we're expanding to reach just all kinds of people who are exploring their career paths, whether they're transitioning or students. And that's me.
That's us. That's us. We did it.
Yeah.
I think we ignored some of the questions, but it's okay.
I think there was some flash.
And by the way, you're a natural at this, as I thought you would be.
I think there's more information that I feel like there's a lot of questions that could prompt us to get into deeper